killed. That's according to Iranian media.
The neighbours have had rocky ties in the past, but these strikes are the highest profile cross-border intrusions in recent years. They add to growing concerns about instability in the Middle East, since the Gazan war between Israel and Hamas erupted on October 7th. Mumtaz Zahra Baluch, spokesperson for Pakistan's foreign ministry, said a number of what she called terrorists were killed.
This morning's action was taken in light of credible intelligence of impending large-scale terrorist activities against Pakistan by these terrorists. Iran is a brotherly country, and the people of Pakistan have great respect and affection for the people of Iran.
Interior Minister Ahmad Fahidi said,
I've got more, because that's what we're doing. We are voting to fund a federal bureaucracy that is war with the American people while we indebt our children for generations.
And this is an important to us because it allows us to fight for our policy changes, our policy riders in those spending bills. And it takes time to do that. And so the reason we need just a little bit more time on the calendar is to allow that process to play out.
The question is, will they actually be able to reach that goal with this 3-week extension that they're giving themselves? The Senate has only passed 3 of its 12 appropriations bills, and the House has passed 7 of its 12. There are still 5 more for the House to consider, and that's been a challenge for this Republican-led House because of inter-party disagreement over certain policies and priorities. So the question now is, will this 3rd continuing resolution during this fiscal year be the last one? Reporting from Capitol Hill, Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Texas is not giving back control of Shelby Park and Eagle Pass, even after a stern warning and a deadline by Homeland Security. Meanwhile, lawmakers in D.C. are moving closer to impeaching Homeland Security's Alejandro Mayorkas. NTD's Arian Pasdar has a border update.
He's not doing his job.
Tensions keep rising at the border in Eagle Pass, Texas. Homeland Security had given Texas a Thursday deadline to evacuate Shelby Park. However, it seems like Texas is defying the order. Fox News published this footage on Thursday afternoon, saying Texas National Guard is installing even more razor wire and fencing instead of evacuating. Texas also reportedly started arresting illegal immigrants, as you can see here. It's not clear how the federal government will respond to that. Last week, Homeland Security sent a letter saying if Texas doesn't hand the park back, the agency will consider all other options available to restore Border Patrol's access to the border. Meanwhile, in D.C., the House Homeland Security Committee holding the 2nd impeachment hearing for Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
This is not a policy difference. The truth is, Secretary Mayorkas has disregarded court
Of a young woman who was allegedly a men fight at the
Had DHS employees performed a visual action study had
Congress should support communities receiving.
The reason why the Constitution of the United States assigns this responsibility, that is the immigration, not to one city or not to one state.
They want Congress to give work authorization to immigrants in the U.S., allocate more federal funding to communities receiving immigrants, and more. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
Need to close the border,
Republicans
idiots.
continue to favor former President.
Streaming into our country, it's an invasion. Remain in Mexico. You think to get? I got it.
Trump said on Truth Social that he didn't think Congress should do a border deal at all unless we get everything needed to shut down the invasion. President Biden faces high disapproval on the border issue. Striking a deal could help Biden politically. Meanwhile, meetings the deal.
President Trump is not right. I've been talking to him pretty frequently. I talked to him night before last about the same subject.
On the other hand, Trump is battling with a number of legal woes as he climbs back to the White House. In a positive turn, a Georgia judge has ordered a hearing into allegations that Fulton County Attorney Fani Willis and the lead prosecutor were involved in an improper relationship. Trump Mike made the allegation court January 8th. He said Wade has been benefiting financially in legal fees and that he's been using their funding to take Willis on lavish vacations. Judge Scott McAfee has given Willis until February 2nd to respond. Meanwhile, Republican Governor Brian Kemp doesn't want to get involved. In response to Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's request that he open an investigation, Kemp said it's not his job. He referred her to the state's Richard DD News.
And the New Hampshire's coming up next. Make sure you miss our special coverage. Join NTD's Steve Lance and myself for an exciting election night on The Nation 2020.
The border is wide open. It needs to be closed. Not more funding. They need to close the border and start sending people back. Not keep them here. It's getting ridiculous.
They just want to make what's happening, this illegal flood, they want to make it legal so that they don't have to report the number of people that are. We'll see this change. In New York, who her district would benefit from adding illegal immigrants into her district so that she could boost the census numbers. And I can tell that they're off what exactly they're attempting to do here, which both their at least their census numbers, and in some cases I have a feeling that they give people that are here illegally the ability to vote.
It's a very important point
Exactly.
you just raised there, Congressman. The House also passing a resolution Wednesday denouncing the Biden administration's open border policies, the public safety crisis along the southwest border, and urging Biden to end his open border policies is what the resolution states. Will this show of unity move Senate Democrat leaders and the president towards securing the border as he continues meeting with congressional leaders over border security compromise?
One would hope, but I don't have a lot of faith in what's going to come out of the Senate. I think that we're going to have to put difficult things on the Senate's desk and make them have to eat it. I think that what was good about that vote that came out of the House is that you saw that it was bipartisan, because there are some Democrats that are peeling off from this administration because they know that their supporters are not happy with this flood of illegal immigrants. So you saw quite a few Democrats vote for that measure. And if you think about it, that's a big statement for them to make, where they're decrying their own president and his policies. That being said, I think what we need to do as a conference is take this continuing resolution for budget, for the appropriations, and every bill that that the Senate sends over here that they want us to pass, and we need to put the firm provisions of H.R. 2 on every bill and send it back to the Senate, and then if you send it there and then go home and say, if you're not going to shut down the border, the government's going to get shut down. It's your choice.
Congressman Eric Burlison, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Even after a stern warning and a deadline by the Department of Homeland Security. Meanwhile, lawmakers in D.C. are moving closer to impeaching Homeland Security's Alejandro Mayorkas. NTD's Arian Pazdar brings us a border update.
Tensions keep rising at the border in Eagle Pass, Texas. Homeland Security had given Texas a Thursday deadline to evacuate Shelby Park. However, it seems like Texas is defying the order. Fox News published this footage on Thursday afternoon, saying Texas National Guard is installing even more razor wire and fencing instead of evacuating. Texas also reportedly started arresting illegal immigrants, as you can see here. It's not clear how the federal government will respond to that. Last week, Homeland Security sent a letter saying if Texas doesn't hand the park back, the agency will consider all other options available to restore Border Patrol's access to the border. Meanwhile, in D.C., the House Homeland Security Committee holding the second impeachment hearing for Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
This is not a policy difference. The truth is, Secretary Mayorkas has disregarded court orders.
The mother of a young woman who was allegedly killed by an MS-13 gang member testified at the hearing.
Had DHS employees performed a visual inspection of the assailant's body, they would have seen MS-13 gang-related tattoos on his body.
House Republicans are now reportedly planning to mark up an impeachment resolution on January 31st. That's according to multiple news outlets. However, Chairman Mark Green reportedly said he's neither confirming nor denying the date. Also on Thursday, both Democratic senators of Colorado said Congress should support communities receiving immigrants.
There's a reason why the Constitution of the United States assigns this responsibility, that is the responsibility of immigration, not to one city or not to one state.
They want Congress to give work authorization to immigrants in the U.S., allocate more federal funding to communities receiving immigrants, and more. Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
Counties in Iowa, and the other can't. Only one he lost, and he lost it by a single vote. The results have narrowed and raised and have solidified Trump as the party nominee. The Iowa results have also been really had a sobering effect on many of Trump's opponents, who believed the attacks on the former president's character would have derailed his support, and are finding that everything they did not work. I'll tell you results on this. These are the Alabama caucus. It says that basically 56 votes. Ron DeSantis came in next week. Nikki Haley with probably he came in anti-rights, but ended and not to plea and done. Brief on this. Things that Vivek was claiming that supporters mentioned to Vivek was being real down the thing that he claiming. Vivek saying this, it is. He's saying that Nikki Haley and DeSantis are going to be running as a shared ticket. I'm 21 for Haley versus has arrows if they around south, have a shot. That's what Vivek. And of course, right after this, I mentioned Vivek. He endorsed Trump. We'll see if there's support for Trump now, but who knows? Let me show you now. He Nikki DeSantis to also drop out of the race, and Vivek joined Donald Trump in New Hampshire. Let me show you this.
And if we can revive dream over group identity and victimhood and grievance, then nobody in the not a nation, not China, going to defeat us. This is what America should have all that are revived. Yeah, make America vote man right here in the new primary. God bless you, families, and may God bless our United States of America. Thank you.
Right after this, Trump came out and took the mic. And Trump closed by suggesting that Vivek may have a role in his administration's team. Watch this.
He's going to be working with us, and he'll be working for a long time.
Now, interestingly, while Nikki Haley and his shows of dropping out of the ring, Vivek is calling on do so. The Trump also calling for not going to, at least not right now. Nikki Haley using any more Republicans. Donald Trump them on for the debates. There's been some mixed news on whether Trump would actually do that. Remember, like the RN states, the Republicans, they're stat media, like the left. That you have, like, obviously, the Democrats and during again, the elections, they're just selecting their candidate, meaning it's an election only within the party. If you're not a registered Republican, you're not going to be able to vote for the Republican nominee. Registered, you're not going to be able to vote for me. I can tell you, politically affiliated, I vote in the primary elections because of that. And so if you're not part of it, you can't vote. So what is the logic of letting a media that appeals only to Democrats the Republican debates when the people who likely watch those networks can't vote? That's one of the big arguments. And of course, they're raising are things that most voters, I believe, don't necessarily care about. They're going up there, raising up all nonsense narratives and so on. And it's a big charade. Vivek, a few people out posts for this, out for doing that. And then, of course, his separate events, Trump's been holding, for example, an interview with Tucker Carlson, time as one of the Republicans. Trump, in his mind, believes not to debate. He believes he's in the bag. Doesn't think really going to make his now, the idea of what Vivek is about, that Ron DeSantis Haley might run on a shared ticket, that could have there's and Trump's lead would be he would hand him something. China can be all. And I recently caught wind of these CCP operations MAGA Republicans. It was true yesterday, it'll be true tomorrow. Biden's suggesting that this entire time he has understood that Trump was very likely going to become the Republican nominee, and this is just the way it is. And he's saying that after the whole Iowa caucus, that Trump is essentially, has it in the bag. He's going to become the Republican nominee. Remember as well, if things really are said and done, this represents something actually a whole lot deeper. If Trump is now the Republican nominee and he has it in the bag, and again, it's not said and done with just yet, but regardless of that, the support he has gotten, the fact that Republicans have not abandoned him, the fact his supporters have not abandoned him, what this means is something else. It means the legal attacks against Donald Trump, the accusations that he's a rapist, that he, lied about the value of Mar-a-Lago, that he was engaged in corrupt business practices, that he tried to start an insurrection in the United States. All of those narratives have failed. It means that his voters either see through it or they don't care. And I think most of them, frankly, see through it. They know it's a bunch of nonsense. They view it in the way that Donald Trump has presented it, that these are forms of election interference disguised as legal attacks. That entire agenda has failed. The censorship has failed. Remember, journalists have not been able to discuss the other side of the argument on many of Trump's key points. If I go on YouTube, I can't talk about a lot of things. And again, we're on YouTube right now. I can't show you on YouTube the real evidence on January 6th. I can't show it. They would give me a strike or they'd kick me off. I cannot talk to you about the facts on election integrity here or they will ban my channel. And everybody's facing that. And so when it comes to, defending the other side of the argument or even just showing you that, what the other side is saying, the social networks, the media, they don't let you do it. Trump has won this despite that censorship, despite the fact that, again, journalists on the, main establishment sources, they can't tell you these things. I can talk about it on Epic TV. I can show this stuff on Epic TV. Again, I have documentaries on Epic TV, but I can't show you that here. That means that for some reason, Trump supporters have been able to see through this and understand the stuff regardless of not being able to see, the other side of the argument. They tried to prevent Trump from campaigning, again, by rolling up court cases against him. Despite that, Trump continued to campaign, even when he has to go to, Iowa and do a huge event, and then he has to, go and show up for court in a whole other state the next day. He has still done it. The guy is pretty dang old. He's still done it. That attempt failed. Trying to raise up opposition candidates, that mostly has failed. The attempts to remove the MAGA movement from the Republican Party, which they tried to do, that failed. The attacks from politicians, from Hollywood, from the media, from the legal system, from international leaders, from influencers, sports stars, actors, business leaders, from challengers within the Republican Party. Even the multiple events from President Joe Biden going up on stage and shouting about the dangers of MAGA extremism and warning that it's a threat to the soul of the nation. All of that, every single one of those, has failed. And that means that the establishment has failed to capture the American people. The establishment has lost its sway over the average person. All of the influencers, all the movie stars, all the media, the entire system through which they believed they could inform the American public and change viewpoints, they're realizing now they no longer have that control over the average person in this country. And that entire system has failed. Now, that being said, the results are not just about Donald Trump being popular among Republican voters. The reports, again, are about the fading influence of the establishment, the inability of the media, industrial complex, the political elite, and so on, to control the country. And for them, that is a sobering realization. This is something that is sending shockwaves through the system right now. You can go and look at, a lot of the establishment media networks. They're admitting it. They're saying, hey, incredible how did we lose this influence over the country? How is it that people will still vote for this guy when we've accused him of every crime in the book just about? Let me show you what journalist and author Glenn Greenwald is saying, because he outlines some of these impacts and what it means for the nation. He wrote this. He said, the massive and historic size of Trump's victory should lead to some self-reflection about what caused the complete collapse of faith in the legitimacy of U.S. institutions of authority and justice, whereby voters so easily disregarded 4 felony cases as irrelevant, if not an asset. Now look, this does not just represent a political victory. Again, Donald Trump winning is, that's big for his supporters. It's big for the Republican Party, but it's bigger than this. This is a blow to the power and the control of the entire global system over the average person. Well, what's next? Because there's is there a new so-called insurance policy? Now remember, when Trump got elected last time, you had these FBI agents having an affair with each other and quietly texting each other, and they were saying, don't worry, if Donald Trump gets into office, we have a quote-unquote insurance policy. And a lot of people question, was that insurance policy the fake Trump-Russia narrative that they used to, again, spy on him, to go after his entire team, to undermine his entire presidency? That they used, for example, to try to launch they did launch investigations to try to remove him from office as president? That they used, notably, to launch a palace coup, through which they tried to impeach the President of the United States. Was that the insurance policy? So the question is, what do they have this time? Well, Tucker Carlson has repeatedly raised the question of whether they might even try to assassinate Donald Trump, because what else can they do at this point? What else do they have in the bag? What else could they possibly try to pull out against Trump that they haven't done already? That's the only thing they're saying. And at the very least, there are now plans coming out to undermine Trump's presidency if he gets elected. Let me show you what NBC News is saying. NBC News is saying this, quote, now bracing for Trump's potential return, a loose-knit network of public interest groups and lawmakers is quietly devising plans to sabotage a future presidential appointee if the American people vote for him while they flap their heads about democracy. Let me show you this. Mary McCord, the executive director of the Institution for Constitutional Advocacy and Protection at Georgia Law, said this to NBC News, quote, we are already starting to put together a team to think through the most damaging types of things that he, Trump, might do so that we are ready to bring lawsuits if we have to. It says as well that part of the aim is to identify like-minded organizations and create a coalition to challenge Trump from day one, those taking part in the discussion said. In other words, this is frankly, I would call this an insurrection. I would call this a group of individuals who are coming together with the plan and with the intent to undermine the President of the United States, who are doing this ahead of time and frankly are doing the same thing they did last time, using every single means at their disposal to make sure the President cannot fully govern the country. They continue by stating some participants are combing through policy papers being crafted for a future conservative administration. They're also watching the interviews that Trump's allies are giving to the press for clues of how a Trump sequel would look. My personal take on this? My personal take is they're plotting a color revolution. My personal take is that they're making it so the President of the United States cannot mobilize the military to put down an insurrection. And if they, for example, do decide to launch an actual insurrection, which again, by every means, this is what it looks like they're doing. If they do decide to launch an insurrection, to start up civil unrest, to undermine the ability of the president to bring order to the nation, to make the entire country ungovernable for the President of the United States by removing the power of the president to put down such an action, they will make it so that they can do this and there's nothing the president can do to restore order to the nation. That is what the establishment is doing right now by their own admission. Now, the many legal attacks and other attempts to derail Trump, they're starting to look really bad for Biden, though. This is the other big side of it. Here's Biden campaign co-chair, this is Jeffrey Katzenberg, responding to a question about keeping Trump off of the ballot, because that's what they're trying to do. Let me show you.
You said that voters will decide the election to be kept off the ballot.
I don't know. Yeah.
You getting that? Is it undemocratic to make it so that people in this country cannot vote for the candidate they want? Is it undemocratic to destroy the system of democracy? Answer, I don't know. That's where they're at, folks. Now look, on another note entirely, remember that in the 2020 elections, polls and data suggest that had the American voters known about Hunter Biden's laptop, they would not have voted for Joe Biden. And the margin through which that would have taken away votes from him, based on polling, the margin of which it would have taken away votes from Joe Biden would have meant that Donald J. Trump would have been elected president of the United States for a second term. They lied to us about the Hunter Biden laptop. They said it's Russian disinformation. That narrative was an act of election interference through which they lied to sway votes. And the Department of Justice, they have finally confirmed that yes, the Hunter Biden laptop was legitimate. It was real. And what does that mean? It means that it was not Russian disinformation. And even more so, it means that a whole lot of people were lying to you about it. They lied. Every single time they said, it wasn't real. This is Russian disinformation. This is another lie of Donald J. Trump trying to bring about extremism in this country. They lied to you when they said that.
Majority of them.
Well, everyone, that's all.
December 2023, the EU Commission opened an investigation on Elon Musk's X, formerly known as Twitter, on the claims of spreading illegal content. Rather than tackling harmful content published online, the rule is designed to push censorship on online platforms on any content deemed disinformation, Zambrano says.
European laws say that X must censor messages that European governments don't want to let through. This is all in the name of good, progress, and responsibility.
One key point is that the legislation about what's being identified as disinformation or hate speech is vague, Zambrano says, which fuel concerns on how the EU Commission will tackle potential harmful content online. The WEF will end on January 19th. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Toy makers are looking to trade.
If you have a piece of crack cocaine no bigger than this quarter that I'm holding in my hand, $0.25 of $1, we passed a law through the leadership of Senator Thurmond and myself and others, a law that says if you're caught with that, you go to jail for 5 years. You get no probation. You get nothing other than 5 years in jail. Judge doesn't have a choice. Under our forfeiture statutes, you can, the government can, take everything you own, everything from your car to your house, your bank account, not merely what they confiscate in terms of the dollars from the transaction that you've just got caught engaging in. They can take everything. I don't care why they become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society. They are in jail, away from my mother, your husband, our families. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street.